The last person we get to in our succession topic is the person who actually succeeded Augustus, his stepson Tiberius. So the key questions to answer are: number 1, how were Tiberius and Drusus related to Augustus? Number 2, when did Tiberius marry Julia and why was this unsuccessful? Number 3, what sort of relationship did Tiberius and Augustus have? Number 4, how did Tiberius become the heir apparent? And number 5, what happened upon Augustus's death? Okay, so starting off with Tiberius and his brother Drusus. So after the death of Agrippa, Gaius and Lucius were only 8 and 5, and so Augustus was forced to turn his attention to Tiberius and his brother Drusus. Both of them had demonstrated really good military and administrative abilities on the German front, and we're going to see this in a bit more detail when we move on to administration next time. So the pair had really good potential as successors. They had the respect of the soldiers, and as we know, that's really important. However, Drusus was killed in battle. At this time, they were both married. So Tiberius was married to a woman called Vipsania, who was the daughter of Agrippa from a previous marriage. And Drusus was married to Antonia, who was the daughter of Agrippa, Augustus's sister, and Mark Antony. However, Tiberius ended up marrying Julia, so he was forced to divorce his wife Vipsania by Augustus because she no longer had any political value as a wife. Her father was dead, she didn't have any connections anymore. However, the pair had been really happily married and were expecting a baby, so they were quite in love, and so Tiberius really resented the fact that he was forced in this political marriage to marry Julia in 12 BC. So they were never very happy together, and Julia had a number of affairs, and it's partially because Tiberius made it very clear that he wasn't keen to be married to her. And this kind of exacerbated tensions which were already existing between Tiberius and Augustus. So Augustus had never really been that fond of him, despite the fact that he was Livia's son and a really good general. And as we'll see, Tiberius was continually overlooked and overshadowed by Augustus's direct relatives. So he was denied a triumph for his victories in Germany in 12 BC, and he had to wait until 7 BC when Augustus finally allowed him to celebrate it. However, he was given tribunician power during his consulship in 13 BC. And he sort of ended up having a bit of a sulk and going off to the island of Rhodes in 6 BC, and he wasn't recalled until 4 BC, several years later, when he was really needed to help out after Agrippa's death, and when Augustus needed him to step up because his grandsons were dropping like flies. So Tiberius ended up becoming Augustus's sole heir, and this process sort of started happening in AD 4 when he was adopted along with Agrippa Postumus, who you'll remember was the youngest son of Julia and Agrippa. However, Postumus was later disowned and exiled. We think he might have been a bit mad or cruel. We're not quite sure what the problem was with him, but he wasn't very suitable as an heir. So basically Tiberius was the default choice left. There was no one else to choose from, and it's kind of story of his life. And so he ended up receiving tribunician power, proconsulare imperium maius, and the title of imperator, which remember means conquering general. When he received this, he also had to adopt his nephew Germanicus, who was, you'll remember, the son of Octavia, the son of, the grandson, of Octavia, So the power would eventually return to Augustus's blood descendants. Remember, he and Tiberius weren't connected by blood, just marriage. And finally, we're going to kill Augustus a bit prematurely, but don't worry, we've still got a few more weeks left with him. But I just wanted to wrap up this so we can see what happens with Tiberius. So in AD 14, at the age of 77, Augustus died either peacefully in his own bed or he was poisoned by Livia, depending on which story you like to subscribe to. And so Tiberius received his money, property, and clients, just like Augustus had done when Julius Caesar died. And he already had the tribunician power and the proconsular imperium. So he had the auctoritas that he got with the money, property, and clients, and he also had the necessary power to take over and rule. To increase his auctoritas, he handed out Augustus's legacy to the people and soldiers, making sure they got what they were left in his will. And around this time, Agrippa Posthumus, who had been exiled, was killed by his guards. We're still not quite sure who did it. Right before Augustus died, he did go to visit him. If we're going with our usual theory, Livia ordered them to, but who knows? Okay, so key questions, make sure you've got the answers. So how were Tiberius and Drusus related to Augustus? When did Tiberius marry Julia, and why was this unsuccessful? What sort of relationship did Tiberius have with Augustus? How did he become the heir apparent? And what happened when Augustus died? So make a note of any problems or questions you have, and we'll discuss them in class.